What is poppin'? It is the Slapton. I am but a lowly Slapton riding these ReFi waves. And this is This Week in ReFi, where we give you all of the ReFi news that is fit to go ape wild over. And of course, with me is the man with the plan, the man without a tan, the Estonian madman, Rez.
It's me.
It is you. It is always you. And we were
It's always me. Very strange.
we were talking before this little broadcast here, and we were mentioning how this will be I think, a spicy episode. Cause we're gonna make it spicy because the fallout of last week's Verra announcement has kind of frozen a lot of on-chain activity, carbon
It
credits.
has, yeah.
But we're gonna bring the heat, man. So stay tuned.
And
We're
spice.
we're gonna bring the real spice. But before we bring the spice, we have to mention that if you are a person interested in working in regenerative finance, if you have an ethos that is compatible with saving the planet, you want to do well and good at the same time, there is a lovely job board from ReFi DAO, which I will leave in the link to the description. Like, as an example, Rez, have you ever wanted to be a Web3 crypto product manager?
Yes, that sounds like an amazing job.
Yeah. So let's say you wanted to do that for the first time, because you're not currently doing that. You've never done that in your
Yeah,
life.
definitely. Never done
Okay.
that in my
You
life.
could go to this job board. You can apply, and you could be working for Eco Sapiens if the fit is well. Or what if you wanted to be the policy and impact lead at Toucan? Have you ever wanted to do that?
Sounds very fun.
I
Yeah.
would want to do that too. Maybe I'll apply. You can do that, and there's so many good jobs, and they're curated by people who know refi. And it's just a really cool product that I will stand behind. So go check that out.
Yeah, guys, you want to create positive internalities while creating positive externalities? There you go.
That's
Go
what
go get that green money.
That's why you're the big brain. I don't even know what those words mean. All right, so let's
As a very tiny aside, like positive externalities is just you're doing things, you have a business, but it's just benefiting other people as well, and you're not just like creating value for yourself. That's a positive externality.
Okay,
It's very good.
Einstein.
Yes.
So this is, I think, the story. I mean, this is the story of the week. If there is one of substance, it's going to be this one. It's the ACR, the American Carbon Registry, has followed Verra in banning the tokenization of carbon credits, which was obviously the big story last week. So, Rez, what says you about the ACR following Verra?
Who this?
Who's ACR?
But,
It's the American
but-
Carbon Registry. How dare you?
Yeah, it's in the world where we have Ethereum and Bitcoin, and we have altcoins. We have gold standard, and we have gold standard and Verra, and we have alt registries. So ACR is like a alt registry, and they're pretty okay in the US. They have mostly demand in the US. And they also do not like when people tokenize their stuff because they, I guess, want more control. Still, I feel tokenizing stuff is great. Let's support it, but why does everybody just have to have no forward guidance and then immediately just clap anyone that tries to do something? What's that?
I have a
Like,
theory on this. I've been thinking about this a lot over the last week. Here's my final I shouldn't say final, my latest hot take on all of this. And I
Okay.
think, you and I have said this a million times, and I've learned a lot of this about you, from you, is ultimately these arbiters of quality need to be reliable, consistent, and predictable. And I think what
Yes.
happened is that they got very spooked by some of the media attention that was surrounding things like zombie credits, and
Yeah.
they just didn't. Part of me thinks that since, like, in a sincere way, they just didn't want to lose that credibility. But then there's the cynical side of me that says, well, they're just trying to get their cut. And I don't think it has to be one or the other. I think it's probably both. But when
Yeah.
I see people saying, like, it's only because they want their cut, it's like, I don't think that's true. Because they could have done that in a way that wouldn't have disrupted the other operations. I think it's that they wanted their cut, but they were also sincerely concerned about what they saw as negative media attention. So here's the
Yeah.
case I'm going to make: is you can hate on Verra all you want, and you can disparage their decisions and their recent decision, but at the end of the day, they are a TradFi company that's going to think and act like a TradFi company. And so
Yep.
now that we know what they are, it's on us. It's incumbent on us, the ReFi community, to convince them or find a solution for them. Like they
Yeah,
have leverage whether we like it or not, and we're not
we
gonna
do.
we're not gonna get our way by bullying them or putting pressure on them because they don't need us, but we need them. So
Yeah, I mean, bad negotiating position, right? It's like, oh, hey, like we have most of the supply. Do you want to work with us? There you go. But on the other hand, like I don't know, I still in my brain want to time skip 6 months forward where we have Vera doing things like legitimizing on-chain carbon. I hope that's gonna happen. Like I think there's good odds of that happening. Hopefully, like alt registries like the American Carbon Registry are also gonna do that. Uh, yeah, it's like kind of news because in my head it was mostly wait, someone was trying to tokenize ACR like credits. That's exciting. But I
yeah,
think that was B3, right?
I don't even know, man. I don't even, to be
Mm.
honest, I know of ACR. I've heard of them. I don't know much about them. I know that they're a smaller. Here's my conceptualization of them, and this is going to be a little bit disparaging, but like in American cartoons and the old ones, there used to be like the big boss bad guy, and then there was a little pipsqueak who follows around, like agreeing, yeah, boss, yeah, get him. You know what I mean? Like that's how I kind of saw this. Is like ACR following like Big Vera, being like, yeah, get those regen losers.
How dare they? How dare they try? Like, can't have people trying without us.
Yeah.
What? No. Like more transparency and scrutiny. We don't want scrutiny. Scrutiny bad.
But I mean, the positive case is that, yeah, in 6 months we'll see. I do think we're going to see I think we're actually going to see like positives come out of this. It's just the question of what's the collateral damage in the last 6 months. And I'm not saying this
Oh yeah.
to be
Like,
controversial, but
dude.
it's like I'll give you an example. It's like Klima,
Yeah.
right? It's like what happens to them
Mhm.
as we get clarity on this. Like they're
Yeah.
they're trying to stay above water with their price because the uncertainty is not good for investment.
Yeah,
And
I mean, and there's more. There's more. Like, what about I don't know. There's a few projects that want to build on top of Toucan and work in their ecosystem. What about like Atom, or what about our friends Changeblock? Like, what about Senken? Like, a bunch of these people wanted to work on Toucan's infrastructure, and it's kind of like in limbo now. Like, if you're a startup trying to create new infrastructure and then suddenly this happens to you and you're, let's say, very close to launch, how do you feel about that? Probably very terrible, and it's not a good experience. So are you going to have necessarily a lot of trust for the organization that did that to you moving forward? Probably not. Like the
yeah,
the whole Vera announcement took everybody by surprise.
right.
It's just not cool.
Yeah, in the short term, this uncertainty certainly stifles progress, but hopefully a lot of these entities, including Klima, can survive. And when the path forward it becomes clear and there is regulatory framework, then I do think you'll see a boon in this space because it'll be the first time we have it, and that instills confidence and it instills investment. So we will
That's the
keep you
hope.
posted on that. Now, hey, speaking of a infrastructure protocol, we were talking about this as well, is the Open Forest protocol. Just put out a tweet that said that their first validator, GeoSwift, is now on board. So, we were getting into what Open Forest protocol is. I mean, do you have a kind of an elevator pitch? I think you can probably put it more eloquently than I can.
I hope. And I'm sorry, Open Forest Protocol, if I like give a bad pitch to you. But Open Forest Protocol is trying to be a Vera style thing, but very focused on making sure we can create high quality reforestation, afforestation, and conservation credits by democratizing the access to being a validator, essentially, or making sure that the data is actually real, making sure that it's trustworthy, and participating with other people in an ecosystem of confirming that this real impacts actually happened. Because a huge issue that we do have is in the current Vera forestry methodology still. I don't know how many people know this, but let's put it this way. Slapton, do you know how currently reforestation credits get created?
I think only within the last 20 minutes because you told me a little bit about it. But it,
Did
you
I?
know,
Oh, okay.
well, you had mentioned, so like my misconception about Verra was that they actually have like a validating body,
Hmm.
but it turns out that they're just ordaining or giving permission for validators to operate in the space. So
And I love it. Okay, next step.
yeah,
This is what you might not have known. So, do you think that these validators are using satellite tech to figure out how much carbon is getting captured?
actually, I hope I am not completely wrong, but I'm going to say this confidently and probably be wrong. I know for a fact that most are not. They're actually like sending people out there, aren't they, to like
Yeah,
to
that
check. Yeah.
you're right. That's the only approved way of doing it. MRV in like satellite form, based on my current understanding, isn't like accepted as a way of measurement right now. Like we're getting there, and there's like a working group I understand in Vera that is slowly like processing that kind of a direction, but we aren't there.
Right.
So like we've had a satellite tech that can monitor forests for years. It's not in there.
I've seen a couple projects try to get that. So just so we're clear, like so people know, like what is like, MRVs is an acronym. It stands for what exactly?
Monitoring, recording, verification.
Right. So
So it's making sure that something's happening, documenting it, and then actually being able to confirm that it's true.
good. So this isn't, you and I were talking. I was asking you, what do you think? Is this a possible workaround from Vera? Like, ultimately, it could be, right? Because what all Vera's doing is giving permission for validators to give their assent to projects. Well, if this
Mhm.
validator's methodology is considered up to snuff, then sure, the projects that are validated by these methodologies could be accepted as because it's a voluntary carbon market. Any carbon credit can be accepted as long as there's confidence in the marketplace, right? So
Yeah,
this could be an organic way by which Web3 and ReFi works around Vera if Vera puts up roadblocks.
yeah. I mean, we can create a lot of trust in Web3 by just being aggressively transparent, and I appreciate that, and I think Open Forest Protocol is one of these projects trying to do that, and that is, I think, super cool.
Cool.
Uh, we, there's not necessarily like this built-in trust for crypto, like there is built-in trust in institutions. Uh, you know, obviously there's a huge amount of scams that have been going around in crypto. The amount of scams that are going around in institutions are very insidious, and you don't know that scams, I think. But fundamentally, we need to do a lot to create trust, but that's what blockchain is good for. It's being like aggressively transparent. You can figure out where did this decision come from, who made it, based on what data, who confirmed it. All of these answers you can get answers to, and these people can be held accountable. While in the traditional structures, it's not that transparent.
Agreed. That's the best way I've described decentralized ledger technology to normies is it's a trust machine. That's fundamentally what it does. It creates trust in a way
Hmm.
that we haven't had before. So yeah, speaking of I'll reach out to these people because I like their project. You had mentioned block change before. Or, I never say it right. Is it change block
Change
change
block,
change
right?
block?
Yeah.
Yes. They want to. I said this before. They've actually been DMing me, so hopefully we can get them on too, and we can have a party, man. We can have a
LFG.
we can
Let's
have
go.
LFG. Okay. All right. So speaking of LFG, Moss, which is the MCO2 tokens. They have put a request for comment for a C3 Moss collaboration. So for those who don't know, C3 is a curve style protocol that you can direct emissions of C3 tokens to certain gauges. So if you wanted to, Moss wants people to lock up Moss Klima, MCO2 Klima liquidity in the protocol, and they're actually going to be bribing, or they propose to bribe that gauge with 100,000 Moss tokens. So if you put your liquidity in that gauge, and you could get Moss tokens on top of C3 tokens.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts? I mean, this might get spicy. This might be this might be picante.
Picante. Yes.
Muy
Uh,
picante.
Yeah, so part of it is the curve model, but their tokenomics is set up in a way that, C3 is like at the same time of doing the whole curve thing, they're also a toucan style like credit tokenizer at the same time. So we're also a meta registry. They bring carbonized credits on chain. But when we're talking about this curve style gauge voting, this is only, I think we checked this, was 40% of total emissions going out, the total rewards going out at any given moment, is through this like voting mechanism. The rest of the 60% is, based on what I understand right now, hard coded. So there's no voting happening. It's just they're emitting rewards to their own system. So if there's another meta registry that comes in and participates, and by that kind of like make C3 more valuable, C3 is going to be the organization that is definitely going to benefit like by miles the most out of this.
Yeah, I think a really like good analogy would be if there were 100 shares of stock and I intrinsically owned 55 of them, 55%, and then I gave 45% to other entities to drive value to my company. At the end of the day, I would be benefiting the most because I have the largest share in the company. So it's kind of like that. Their tokens, there's a amount that gets put out. They're intrinsically going to have the lion's share, C3, and so any other protocol that's driving demand for that token will be enriching C3 primarily first, which isn't to say that they can't also enrich themselves.
Yeah, like,
but
you can also benefit, but like in terms of like how currently the tokenomics is set up, it kind of does seem to intrinsically like drive most of the value towards their own system, which I definitely don't fault them for. It's maybe like hard for me to wrap my head around you as like an external player. What are your like push and pull, levers on from your perspective of like why do you want to participate instead of, for instance, giving these MOS tokens directly to LPs? You know what I mean?
Right. Well, hey,
Yeah.
I agree with you. And I've been thinking about like, why does Moss want to do this? And maybe it's just to get exposure. Maybe it's to build closer relationships with people in the space, which is good. I mean, I do think that ReFi needs to bind together, especially during this. I think what this Verra thing has taught me is the importance of having allies and the importance of being aligned with other projects, because at this point, if you're on an island, if you're a pariah in the space, you're kind of boned. Whereas if you can have a unified front with everybody, you have a much better chance of success. And that's always true in these nascent emerging markets. And we have talked about this last time, that I want to see the end of sniping in ReFi. I mean, this should be a clear call to action to everybody in ReFi to accept that we are friends. We are fighting a monster, and the only way maybe we're not friends, but we are all collectively fighting a monster, and we need to at least be friendly to each other. So if that's why they're doing this, good on them. But hey, for the Moss holder, this is great because you get you get emissions, essentially. You get C3 emissions if you want to provide liquidity, which is great. And you can get some Moss tokens for that as well. So kind of cool. Yeah. What do you think about that? How do you feel about the importance of cooperation in this space?
I posted this on Twitter. I think today. Someone had like a really good thread on it, which I shared. Please go and like check out my Twitter. But what I said on top of that was essentially, if you're spending like most of your time just shitting on other projects instead of being positive, providing feedback, giving like actual constructive critique in a way that is going to cause other people to behave better. We are all NGMI. Like, it's not just you that you're pulling down. It's like you're pulling down everyone around you like a drowning person. It's kind of a problem for lifesavers because you don't want to get too close to a drowning person because they're panicking so much that they're just like grabbing hold of anything that they can, grab. And sometimes that just means like both the person that is drowning and the lifesaver will drown, and that's not constructive. So if you're going to, if you have negative feelings, there are ways to do this without like publicly, constantly, non-stop shitting on another project, or every time like a magazine or like a journalist calls you, just like giving negative comments to them. Stop doing that. Like, it doesn't help anyone. You're just helping build up this image of anyone that's trying to fix climate change, that we're all like completely incompetent, malicious, or don't know what we're doing. That it's unhelpful. you won't exit that situation looking like the only smart person in the room. You'll exit that situation having made the whole space look bad.
Yeah.
Why? What do you get out of it?
Perfectly said. So, when I was a lifeguard, just as an aside, one of the things that you're
Mhm.
taught, just to your point, is that when you are saving a person who is drowning, you actually are taught defensive maneuvers because they will, out of panic, try to take you down. And what I always thought it was funny is like you approach a drowning person to save them, and then when they start like bringing you down, you have to dunk their head under to like basically simulate drowning, and they let go of you. But it's just it's ironic. But no, that's
Yeah.
100% true. Is here's the way I'll put it in a tongue-in-cheek way. When ReFi gets to the point where we have absolute confidence from the market and legitimacy writ large, then we can start shitting on each other. Until then, play nice.
Yeah, it's like, and it's like, we're finding a much larger narrative, because I don't know if these people, like, I think everybody's noticed at this point that, in terms of like mainstream journalism, we have crypto is terrible. Crypto is just like the worst thing ever, and any solution that is trying to fight climate change is inherently suspicious. Like, journalists just for some reason really like shitting on anybody that's even trying. Like, in any, like, you can find 10 times more negative articles about people trying to like do anything about climate change than you can find people like saying positive things about organizations doing anything to fix climate change.
It's a good point. You can see like, a company can destroy an ecosystem with an oil spill, and you get some negative articles, but then you get like 10
Yeah.
times as many for some solution or proposed solution.
Yes, it's like, you know, okay, I'm not gonna use the obscene quote about this, but essentially, like, you can save 10 forests and fuck up one, but you're just going to remember for having fucked up the one forest. Like,
That's right.
that's the vibe, and that's like almost permanent. And it's we're trying. I'm sorry, like, everything's getting better over time, and thoughtful critique is accepted. But the moment that journalists show up and just start going like, yeah, stop trying, it's like this solution terrible, it's never gonna do anything, we should just all like drown ourselves in a well and get it over with already.
Right. But
like,
but knowing that, Rez, is like stop giving them ammunition, and that's what we
Yeah,
have to like.
exactly.
Stop providing them with easy quotes about how we're all terrible. That's my one wish for.
Yeah.
If one positive thing comes out of this, other than regulatory frameworks, is that people in ReFi understand that at this moment we need to be closer to each other than we do enemies, because there's a lot of it, unfortunately. Hey,
Yep.
speaking of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, this is the next one. Crypto miners' energy, climate costs draw White House scrutiny. This is exactly what you were talking about. I don't know if you meant to segue, but you did it perfectly. This is the classic crypto is bad. Crypto miners do require a lot of energy if they're proof of work, Bitcoin in particular. There are climate, ramifications of this. And the White House now seems to care about the climate, specifically when it comes to crypto. So what says the Rez man? First of all, Rez happy, Rez sad about this.
Res ambivalent, but well,
Ooh.
we agreed that Res can't be
have to take one.
ambivalent.
You
So,
have to take one.
like, yeah, okay. In that case, Res sad for the same reasons as last week when we talked about crypto mining, or it might have been the week before that. To anyone watching, please watch our previous videos. They're all great.
At least 50% are.
At least 50% of them are great. I don't know how many we even have at this point, but press the subscribe button, like the video, share it with your friends, and comment whatever the YouTuber thing is to say. But yeah, do all of those things, please. But
Comment rug. Just comment RUG.
yeah. Yeah, just comment rug. It's engagement. We swear. But in this situation, it's the same as always. Where the energy comes from is important. If we myopically just say, "Oh, it needs energy," you're right. But a lot of renewable energy has this issue that we can't really store it, so we'll have excess energy, and excess energy is lost profits for these companies. So if you have elastic demand in the form of, for instance, Bitcoin mining, that's great for you. That's the main cost for you, energy. So if you can sell that off instead of just, not being able to generate as much energy as you'd like, who loses from this situation?
Agreed. And the other thing that doesn't get mentioned enough is if, and this might be too idealistic, but if crypto supplants a lot of the TradFi legacy financial systems, it's actually way less energy intensive. I've seen lots of analysis of this. Like we accept that like our system currently is I don't know, justifiable, but it's way more polluting than crypto. It's a long, drawn out, to be honest, tired argument.
It
And
is.
we're just going to see it over and over again. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because crypto's not going to stop. So at the end of
It
the
won't.
day, I don't know.
The work continues.
The
Yeah,
work
the work
continues.
continues. It's fine.
All right,
You
here's
know,
a,
like you're allowed to have opinions, journalists. Go for it.
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. It's fine.
Take your shot. Well, Res happy, Res sad. ESG market in Canada faces greenwashing risks due to poor data.
Yes.
So this ties back to MRV, right? So
Yes, greenwashing bad. So like at the end of the day, poor quality is bad. Poor MRV is bad. Lack of transparency is bad. So I like that. At least this article seems to be mostly balanced around the fact that there are serious risks if you're trying to do good things but you don't have data. You risk not doing good things.
yeah,
You can't improve what you don't measure.
6%.
That's like a data scientist creed. You can't improve what you don't measure.
That's right.
So you need to measure stuff, and you need to have good data. Because second data scientist saying is garbage in, garbage out. Like your models will be terrible if you're doing a bad job measuring stuff.
Right. So now to illustrate how widespread this is, just 6% of respondents said that they were very satisfied with the availability of sustainability related data. 6%, man. I mean, that's abysmal. There's 4 times as many who like appreciate like politicians like Biden's work. Like that's really low.
That's an approval rating for the ages.
Yes. So, you know, this goes back to open forest protocol and just the maturation of the space. And so, you know, again, you and I were talking off before about, you know, if you want to get involved in Web3, like the idea that you have to solve everything in one fell swoop is kind of like ludicrous. Like if you just want to be a solution for data provisions, like you'll do very well. Like focus on a niche thing, deliver it. We'll all be like interoperable with the little niche things that we do. But this is clearly an opportunity for somebody that has some background in data. Hey man, here's your market. Go make it happen. We'll see.
Yeah, that's the Web3 creed. I think at the end of the day, what Web3 does better than Web2 is interoperability. It's you build a system and someone else can come in and go like, dude, great system. This is exactly what I needed. I don't need to build that anymore. And you now have a user that can, you know, go on and have their users that go on and have their users. And then we have robust systems where, you know, yes, will have competitors, obviously, as well. But you just focus on executing one thing very well. And if you execute that one thing the best, you're gonna win. That's about it, you know.
Chainlink comes to mind, right? Chainlink, which is an Oracle service on crypto. I mean, it's the one that does it. It gets integrated infinitely into every project at this point. It's almost a default if you have any project that interfaces with off-chain data. And think of all the applications that run off of that one application. So
yeah, and they're not trying to do everything. It's just we're an Oracle. Get data. Here you go. Enjoy.
Right, and they're successful. All right,
and they're good at it. Yeah.
Res happy or sad about this, by the way? Greenwashing.
I think because of how this article was written, sure, Res happy.
Res happy. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now I thought you'd be sad about this one, but I could be surprised. Deutsche Bank raided by authorities over ESG greenwashing claims. This is the quote: "We found evidence that could support allegations of prospectus fraud."
Yep.
Happy or sad?
Res happy. Get fucked.
Ooh.
Like spicy episode. Remember?
Muy picante.
But muy picante. The thing is that yes, the whole ESG marketing has been a huge thing. But this is just like normal fraud. If you tell people you are doing ESG aligned stuff, so you're trying to create, you know, you're trying to only work with organizations that do other very positive things in the world, for instance, and then you don't do that, and that's your, you know, investment prospectus, you're just lying to your investors. That it's not anything different or special or unique or, you know, even legal. You're just lying to your investors. And, you know, if they get punished for it, that's good, because fundamentally, this is also from one of the past episodes. The government should jump in and like tell people that they can't lie. You know, it's like, stop lying. It's fine. Like, you can tell the truth. Like, you know, if people want to invest in, I don't know, oil platforms, they're very welcome to do it. You don't need to package it like an ESG investment or something.
Right. So that's really what's going on. Is this is like in vogue. We've been covering it now. Is there's a lot of interest in these investments, these ESG investments, and so these companies are then putting forth their packaging these things together and saying these are green, these are sustainable, and it turns out that maybe they're not, and that is absolutely fraud. So I understand that you are. I am sad that this happens, but I am happy that there is a crackdown on it, and I think there's more to come. I don't think Deutsche Bank is the only one doing this, so we will keep you posted on that. G7 ministers declare 2035 clean grid target. They postpone decisions on climate finance. This is kind of a mixed bag. Happy or sad ultimately? I mean, here's the take, is that it's good that they've declared a clean grid target, but what's the obvious problem that we have that we keep making light of when we see these sorts of articles and headlines?
It's the fact that they put like the year into some very abstract point in the future and they do nothing about it now. That's the business model here. We're saying we're doing things in the future, and I am going to be sober by the year 2300 because I'll be dead. It's fine, you know, it's solved. I'm very sober by then. It's
too
great.
will be sober by 2035.
Yes.
And I will pay you back for all of the loans you've given me in 2035.
Yeah,
You just have to, I mean, trust me.
Yeah, I mean, like, what are you gonna do when I'm dead? Come on, you know, like, the loans are either going to be paid off or they aren't. I don't care anymore.
I'm gonna have this podcast by myself, and I'm gonna still intro you as if you were here, and I'm gonna talk to myself. Is what I'm gonna do.
Man, that sounds so sad. I hope you don't do
it. I'll just wait for you to talk.
Yeah, 2300. You're like, you know, you've just uploaded your brain into, you know, the singularity, and you're doing YouTube shows with a simulated version of me as well. We'll keep doing this forever.
If I get uploaded into the singularity is going to hear repeatedly over and over again the word rug. That's going to be my contribution to the singularity. I'm just going to be sitting there going rug, rug, rug until people just, like, everybody in the singularity can't take it. I will destroy the singularity.
If that's a plan. That's definitely a plan.
But I mean, this is classic, right? I mean, when was the last time we saw a headline that said that we're going to be clean, whatever, by 2025, or even like 2028 or 2026? Like, I would accept that this takes some time, but there, you know, 2035 is like 12 years, 13 years. What year is it? Who am I?
It's somewhere around that area.
12 and a half
What
years.
are years? I don't do math.
Yeah. 12 and a half, 13 years. It's like, no one's going to remember these pledges. And if they don't hit them, there's going to be no accountability. And that's exactly why they're doing them from my cynical perspective. So at this point.
Yeah, it's like they want to take responsibility, but not in a form that they have to do something about it. It's kind of like that vibe. You know? It's like, yeah, we're working on it, but in the future.
Yeah, and they're postponing decisions. Well, yeah, whatever. We'll see what happens. I'm sad. I'm sad for both of us. But
agreed. Yeah.
Here's speaking of responsibility, the responsibility of where you source your energy from, I think, often goes overlooked, and it's becoming clear now during this Ukraine-Russia crisis. So one of the things that's happened during this time is that Russia has become a country non grata, right? Like its products, its money is not welcome in Western, basically worldwide, except for a couple of states like China, I'd imagine. But the problem with that is Russia has supplied a lot of fuel, a lot of carbon-based fuel to the world, including where you live in Estonia. I'd imagine even some of it comes to America, which is absurd considering how much we're sitting on ourselves. But this is all changing. And I think this ties in with regenerative finance because now we have a clear understanding of the importance of where we source our energy from. And because we can no longer source it from Russia or choose not to source it for Russia, I think that this gives us incentive to become energy independent. And what that ultimately means is developing sources of energy that perhaps are renewable, because everyone has access to the sun. Many of us have access to currents in the ocean. Many of us have access to wind. Many of us have access to other things, right? So yeah, what's your opinions on this? Does this make you happy, sad, and how would you weigh in on this?
Obviously, the war in Russia is a full body migraine to anyone that's bordering Russia, and shout out to Ukraine for still keeping the fight up.
Indeed.
Seriously, I think it's in a sense it's a miracle. Like I think everybody should be impressed.
I agree. I think that's the right word. It's an absolute miracle that their resistance is what it is. And I sincerely doubt that even the country that I'm from, sorry, Americans, would have a hard time in the face of what they're facing.
Yeah, with the equipment and like preparedness level and like military of the US, you'd be fine. But if you're just basically like Ukraine, it's like a different situation.
yeah, their resolve is unbelievable. But okay, so anyway,
Yeah. That's an aside.
Yeah.
But the thing is that energy policy in Europe is super weird. Historically, I think every single European country has underinvested by a lot when it comes to alternative energy sources. And I think a very good example of this is I think it's Lithuania that has a really easy time coming off of Russian gas because they, for like multiple years, they've made the investments, but they don't really depend on it that much. In Estonia, our situation is a bit worse. I think we had the biggest inflation rate in Europe. We, like a lot of European countries, use the euro. Inflation is a local what's the word? Local phenomenon. So like in Estonia, it's in other parts of Europe it might be 7% annualized. We're seeing like 20% annualized because gas has become so expensive, energy has become so expensive that it's eating into people's budgets. Yeah, and like you're getting less stuff now because energy is so expensive, because Europe has underinvested by a lot when it comes to renewable energy. So I think this is a wake-up call for everyone. Just stop depending on countries that you don't deem trustworthy in the first place for your energy needs. They are going to hit you over the head with it the moment anything goes sideways.
Yeah, so this goes back to almost what we were saying about the negotiating position that the carbon market's in with Verra. It's like Russia has leverage because Russia is heating your homes.
Yeah.
And one way that you can remove that leverage is to develop renewable energy systems that make you independent of somebody like Russia, or at the very least, source your energy from a country that is more value aligned with you, at the very least, right? And so if you have to buy fossil fuels, if you have to, quote unquote, then at least buy them from somebody, a country that won't invade. And I can't even see America because we did it too.
Yeah, it's like let's put it this way: at least have contingencies. Like
Right.
you're creating a fragile economy otherwise,
Agreed.
because you want robust systems. Everyone wants robust systems. It's not just crypto. We have to have systems with not very easily reachable failure conditions. And when it comes to European energy policy, there's always been like a huge failure condition, and we're gonna see it play out, and it's gonna get worse over the next few months. It's not good. It is bad. It is not good.
It is not good. Well, final thing. Hopefully, we can end on a positive note. I think we will. I think you'll be happy about this. I think Rez will be happy. World's fastest carbon capture system, direct air capture, claims 99% efficiency in ambient air.
Res happy.
Res
Holy
happy.
shit! Like we read this article, and I'm struggling to believe it's real, and there has to be a catch somewhere. So for context, what this article described is a form of chemical air capture, where the substance used to capture the CO2 ambiently from the air can be reused to do it again. So that's cool. Can I get more of that? That's pretty nice.
Yeah. So
There's been some innovations in chemical air capture, because right now I think Climeworks is still using basically electrical sponges almost, or something like this, to capture carbon from the air. Chemical air capture that just does this on a chemical level like that seems very impressive. I would like to know more about this, and it's a proof of concept written as a research paper from if I remember correctly, a Japanese
Yep,
research institute.
that's right.
So good for them.
Tokyo Metropolitan University via Eureka Alert. Yeah, man. I mean, it's not all gloom and doom out there. There's certainly really cool things happening. This would be one of them. And so, just what we haven't seen in the refi space is tokenization of like direct air capture because it's so expensive. That's like one of the problems with it is it's cost prohibitive. But
Part of it is this.
Yep.
There's a second part actually to this.
It's just difficult to capture a lot.
Well, that too, and there's basically no existing circulating supply. So what are you tokenizing?
Right.
But the last part of this is a lot of these very, very super high tech direct air capture solutions. They are their own registry. So they're self-certifying these credits as well. So that means it's even harder to tokenize anything because it's not like a nice systemic thing that you can like tokenize. It's like you have to have a whole technical process for just one project,
Right.
which isn't creating almost any volume,
Right.
which is very unattractive on a technical level. And I think somebody's going to say, but yes, well, there's the Puro registry, which deals directly, I think, only in removals. And you would be right, but they mostly do biochar, which is like a $80 per ton or somewhere in that range
Right.
kind of thing. It's not a $500 per ton like direct air capture thing.
Right, right, right. Okay, that's very interesting. So, good news. Hopefully, this will proliferate. Hopefully, it will improve, and hopefully, it will find its way into ReFi, and hopefully, ReFi will find its way in the coming. I don't know, man. What do you think? How long do you think? Final parting thoughts. How long do you think it will be before we get clarity from the grand arbiters of Verra about what's going to happen in this space?
I think it's going to happen relatively fast because I don't know if I were like an organization like iCroa or any one of these, organizations that aggregates a bunch of people with opinions, and you were never even like kind of consulted on this topic, or it's you're gonna be like kind of mad, and if they're acting as the Fed for carbon, I think people should hold them accountable if they behave unpredictably. That's not a thing they are allowed to do, in my opinion. So if I think we'll have to at least, provide clarity soon because this is a very bad look, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little bit less optimistic. I don't think Verra
Okay.
has any incentive to move quickly, and they haven't done it in the past. And I think that they have had a really thick skin to criticism because they can. So my thinking is it'll be 6 months at the minimum before we have definitive clarity. I think they'll probably have working groups. I don't think much will come of them. These are all speculations. I have no idea what I'm talking about. But just based on their previous pace of movement, I mean, it took them what, from November until now to do this? And they were hinting at this back in November. And I wonder if they would even have done this had there not been all that media attention about zombie credits. It could have even been longer because they are deliberate and assiduous, and their whole goal is to be predictable and slow. Similar to how like Bitcoin's value comes from the fact that it's predictable and slow. Like people see that as a detriment, but it's actually its value. That's the same thing with Verra. So
yeah, the US Fed printing money is only valuable because they have some guidance on it. Like if the US Fed could print twice as much tomorrow, you wouldn't have trust that the dollar would be worth anything, so you wouldn't be basing your transactions on the dollar, right? It's the same thing in like the carbon space. If you're a carbon project and you have like expectations for the future, and Verra changes something like very rapidly, you will not have trust that they will behave in your best interest moving forward. And you won't have trust that your multi-year huge project will amount to anything. It's a problem. Like these organizations can't behave like this because they are kind of the bedrock. They're the foundational part of how the market is supposed to function.
very
And
well said. Great analogy. Yeah.
I hope I hope they'll at least start moving fast now, because very clearly I don't think the response to this has been what they expected it to be. Maybe I'm wrong. I have no idea. But I would hope that the next half year we're gonna end up with a lot of clarity, because the best thing that can happen on the crypto front is if we do have guidance, and it's like binding guidance of this is normal now, like this, we will accept this. Any corporation that does this, we will give them the legitimacy to do it.
Right. Yeah, I think the next 6 months is a good time frame. And the things that I think you're going to see, someone had asked in a Twitter post I was in, like, what do you think is going to happen? It's like, I don't think there's any way around KYC. I don't think Verra is going to let bridgers do this without knowing their customer. I think that's going to be a prerequisite. They're not going to give that up. And I'm actually fine with that. And the other thing is I would think that Verra, and this is going to be weird, but Verra needs to somehow check that the quality of the pools being created on chain are up to snuff. But that sounds weird, because what they'd have to be saying at that point is that the credits that they have previously okayed might be low quality. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's very self-incriminating, isn't it?
right.
It's yeah,
How dare you drive
yeah,
demand
you're
to our
saying
shit credits? Yeah.
exactly. It's like saying the quiet part out loud at that point, right?
Yeah, I think
It's
that's what I think that's what got Verra. I really do. I think what spooked him was that this was drawing attention to their shady methodology, not shady, their shaky methodologies. Is that crypto was driving demand? Was legitimate critique, and I know this is
Yeah,
going to
it
ruffle
was.
feathers, and I don't care because it's what I honestly believe. I think crypto was driving demand for poor quality credits that the TradFi markets had essentially all blacklisted, and I
Yeah,
think it scared Verra. But that's the problem with their methodologies more than it is with crypto. But they're not going to see it that way.
I to a large extent agree. I think there's this math that kind of you need to do. Historically, I think we've looked at this term of liquidity as if like bigger carbon number goods. Realistically, I think the idea would be the biggest carbon number you could get while still having, provable demand. That's like a sweet spot in my head. If you go under that, it's like, who are you building this liquidity for? You'd kind of have to create your own demand for it. It's not already inherent in the market.
My conceptualization of liquidity for carbon credits has always been to base the value of it in US dollars and not in tons, right? So if I have if I have 1 million tons of some carbon methodology that the market deems worthless, I have 1 million tons of nothing. Like, I can't tout that as liquidity, as like, this is this great thing I've brought on chain. I've brought nothing on chain in terms of real value. Like, we need to start thinking about these carbon credits, in my opinion, in terms of like fiat denominations, which goes against the ethos of Web3, but we don't have a better way of doing it, right?
I kind of get that, but
Yeah.
if I can push back a bit,
Yeah.
it's I had someone push back on this in like a very casual conversation at some point, and I would like to parrot this because I think it's very true. The thing is that if we're talking about historical demand for any carbon credit, this is a very new phenomenon. Like, organizations have been creating carbon credits with the expectation that they'll get more valuable in the future for a while. It's just that the prices that people have been willing to pay for this have been extremely low. So we have had a aggressive oversupply, and we have had very, selective demand. But if you're getting to a situation where we have a lot of demand, the price spiking up, people will have preferences that will, they'll be like, I can't afford this, let's go lower. That's kind of the approach there. So the more valuable carbon credits get over time, the more they will trend towards just, picking out the lesser quality credits that they can get their hands on that they won't get like immediately shit on. That's also gonna be a completely normal market behavior, and it is the result of maybe like some bad decisions being made in the past. Second thing I wanted to push back on, which I like, perhaps someone would like to push back on this once I have said it. But the HFC 23 situation, while nobody wants to have necessarily a lot of HFC 23 because it's historically for people listening, the whole problem with HFC-23 is that it's a gas that is generally used, if I remember correctly, in making refrigerators. It's very bad for the atmosphere. It's like thousands of times worse for global warming than CO2. So what needed to be done is that we need to destroy this gas so it doesn't mess with the atmosphere, right? But this is a very legitimate need, right? If the government isn't going to regulate it, we have to create positive incentives around not doing that. The problem was that this got to a point where there were projects springing up because of this like thousands x like multiplier on top of like what a normal CO2 credit would be, you know, because you're getting thousands of credits for destroying 1 ton of like a gas, right? The unit economics became so attractive that they basically started setting up almost fake factories so they could claim that they are destroying something while they're basically setting up the whole legal structure just in order to create the credits in the first place, which is horrible incentives.
Right.
You know, it's very perverse.
Perverse incentives, yep.
Yes, but when we're talking about the credits that ended up on chain, the HFC-23 credits, that was a real factory, by the way. This is something I didn't know. Like, this wasn't one of the like very problematic cases. The methodology is like problematic, but apparently like this was a real factory that wasn't necessarily created for this case. But it did get caught in the crossfire just like every other HFC-23 project.
Yeah. It's complicated. I mean, everything we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. But the situation is a lot more complicated than you'd expect, and it's weird and it's hard, and like the whole carbon space is just so annoying to wrap your head around because there's so much complexity hidden under the surface.
Infinite.
So you just assume that something's like very bad, and then you look closer and you're like, this is some shade of gray, and I actually making a decision of if this is terrible or not becomes progressively harder the more you learn about it.
Yeah. At the end of the day, though, we got to do something. So
yes, exactly.
Yeah. So
you know, HFC-23 didn't work out, wasn't a good idea. Like big picture, you know, we don't do it anymore.
Right.
What do you want? Like, is it drama now? Is that necessary? It's over, you know.
Build
like
fast,
we can only
break some shit, and hopefully you can fix it on the fly. I mean, that's the way. That's the way we got to go. I mean, that's just where we're at.
So. Yeah, and to end this, it's like the only way you can move is forward. Like if you just keep looking back and going like everything was bad before, you never get to the point where you're improving anything.
Right. Well, there you have it. There's our lives, the same as crypto, the same as this fight against climate change, moves in one direction, and that's forward, and never lose sight of that. So speaking of moving forward, we will catch you on the next one. Above all else, remember to ape responsibly. Peace, dudes.
And dudettes.
And dudettes. Got 'em.